Morning, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're at. Welcome to today's webinar. Just to make sure this is the correct one, it is called Become a Cloud Master with HPE Helion Cloud Suite. Actually, this is part 2 of a 3-part series. A couple of weeks ago, many of you probably participated in part 1, which was high-level general concept of Helion Cloud, HPE. This one will be a little more drilled down, and Carrie, one of the speakers, will actually kind of review part 1. So if you missed it a couple weeks ago, you'll be in good shape. This is being brought to you by HP Enterprises. Next slide, please. And my name is Jim Copio, so I'm the moderator of this webinar. And just from a point of introduction, I'm from Whitlock Infrastructure Solutions. I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, US, and I am a Vivid member for about 17 years, as well as a BSM SIG leader and one of the Carolina chapters in the US. I co-chair that. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce today's speakers, and there's 2 of them. The first one is Carrie Sprinkle, and she joined HPE back in 2008 as a pre-sales engineer and has been in product marketing for about 6-7 years. Her area of expertise obviously is hybrid cloud management, but also DevOps, data center automation, and disaster recovery. And she's going to be starting off the presentation and then do a handoff to our second presenter, and that is Kieran Maykarla. And Kieran is about 18 years of experience working with worldwide product teams, pre-sales, channel, alliance partners, and customers through the support teams. And he joined Hewlett-Packard Enterprise in IT operations management when data center cloud computing technology was evolving, and he helped build a lot of what you're going to see today. So those are our 2 speakers. Next slide, please. Just from a housekeeping perspective, this is a live webinar, and it will be recorded. So a few days later, after this webinar, you'll get an automatic email in your inbox. It'll have a link. You can click on that and actually review the live seminar in archive mode, and then also see the Q&A that will be covered, and maybe some things that we got to research and get back to everyone. And then you'll also see the slide deck that you're going to see today. Very importantly, there is a question pane, so you'll have the ability to ask questions. So please, you'll see the question pane on the upper right-hand side, most likely. Expand that, type in your question, and just hit send, and it'll go into a queue. And we will hit as many of the questions as possible towards the end of the webinar. And then, again, they'll be archived for access later. Next slide, please. Okay, one more slide, please. I think we're actually ready to get started. We are. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Carrie, and I'll bounce back towards the end with our Q&A and wrap up. So Carrie, please proceed.
Great, thanks a lot. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second session for the new Helion Cloud Suite that was released in July of this year. I'll do just kind of a quick recap of our first session, really just kind of a what it is or what is the Helion Cloud Suite, and then I'll pass it off to Kieran to really walk you through some of the demo scenarios, and so you can see it in action. But for those of you who may have missed the first webinar, just a quick overview. The Helion Cloud Suite, again, this is a new suite that was just introduced in July, and it really collects our best and brightest components for cloud management together. And the premise behind it was to address numerous concerns, not just provisioning, right? That's usually what people think of when they think of the cloud, right? I need to provision some services, but to go beyond that and deliver everything from, beyond just the automation and orchestration to deliver that infrastructure, but also to get into multi-cloud management, predictive analytics, even provide a cloud-native application platform and to enable continuous delivery, and also to take it really beyond all of that and do service transformation to help you migrate applications from a traditional type of infrastructure or traditional type of architecture into the cloud. So really this is all about going beyond just your basic hybrid cloud management platform and providing everything you need to deliver your services more quickly to the end users. Kieran, if you could hop to the next slide, please. So we really tried to address 5 key areas, and the first, I'm going to start at the bottom. The first one is orchestration. We provide a single comprehensive orchestration platform with, many of you may be familiar with this, it is operations orchestration. It's got over 8,000 plus flows and operations that you can pull together to automate various processes across IT and across various IT business units, from your database to dev to test to anything, whether you're trying to do something with a network device or do something with a server, right? Whatever you're trying to tie together, tie that to an application, tie that into your ticketing system, all the types of things, all of the processes that you need to automate can be done with operations orchestration. And of course it also has open APIs, so that if in our 8,000 plus flows and operations you can't find the one you need, you can create those on your own. The next one is cloud management, and really it goes beyond, again, like I said, cloud management, going beyond that and managing infrastructure for not just for the cloud, but also containers, managing your bare metal infrastructure, your traditional infrastructure. So the ability to tie all that together into a unified platform and manage all of those different types of IT infrastructures is the premise here, and also the ability to monitor that and take corrective actions, remediate things, do compliance for those business services, and manage that from end to end. The next category is analytics. So we've brought in our big data platform, and being able to go in and actually do some analytics, not just for the cloud, but also for your current infrastructure. And again, being able to tie all of that together so that you can quickly recognize issues as they occur, address or identify root causes and address those issues, automatically remediate, and even do some predictive analytics to take steps before something becomes a problem. The next category is application delivery, and I mentioned before the cloud-native platforms, so the Helion Cloud Suite does include a cloud-native platform so that you can do the cloud-native development and delivery out to production. We also include pipeline management and continuous delivery for traditional applications as well. So again, we're trying to bridge that gap, right? A lot of tools, you either have to pick the old or pick the new. I'm either managing my old stuff or my new stuff. We find that most of our customers need to do both, right? We want to progress into the new, but we can't change everything overnight. So we help you bridge that and be able to do application delivery across that full gamut. And then the last piece is the cloud broker, and really doing service transformation and addressing the user experience. So this provides a unified catalog for your end users to be able to order their services. It's provided across multiple devices, right? We're not limited to just a web interface, but also interfaces for tablets, phones, mobile devices, what have you. So it's really to give that end user a great consumer-style experience. And next slide, please. We do offer this in 3 different editions. So we have HCS Express, we have Premium, and we have Ultimate. And each one is to address a specific set of use cases. So if you start with Express, it is lifecycle management for physical and virtual machines. And notice there's no mention of cloud in there. So with the Express, this would be to manage your traditional infrastructure. To get to the cloud piece, you have to move to Premium, or you can start with Premium. You don't have to move. The premise behind Premium is really to offer a DevOps-driven multi-cloud experience so that you can deliver those services very quickly as your development and testing teams need them. It does include that cloud-native application platform that we discussed. This is where you start getting into the hybrid cloud management, container management, all of those different components here in that Premium edition. And then finally we get into Ultimate, which is the complete transformation. Let's talk a little bit more about those. Kieran, if you'll jump to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about each one of those, and then I'll hand it off for the demo. So for the Express, it's really all about infrastructure automation. So this does give you the first three parts, right? You still get the orchestration platform. You get management, not cloud management, but management of your infrastructure, physical, virtual, that type of thing. And you get some analytics, right? So we can do some capacity analytics and some basic, provide some basic services there. Now moving into Premium, next slide please. So moving into Premium, we start adding a little bit more. Now we add that application delivery piece, and this enables you to provide the platforms that your dev and test teams need to be able to do continuous delivery. So it also gives you a bit more on each of the others, right? So into that management piece, we add cloud management, we add discovery, we add multi-cloud management, as well as container management. It strengthens all of the automation components, all of the analytics components, so you get a little bit more of each of the pieces as you move through the additions. And then finally, we get into the Ultimate. Next slide, please. And the Ultimate is where you get the complete service transformation component. So this is where you'll have the ability not only to go in and do some analysis of your existing applications, but actually will help you transform those or migrate those to the cloud, if you will. So we can take a look at, like I said, we can do the discovery with the Premium. With the Ultimate, we can take that discovery and actually help you determine the best way to migrate that application to the cloud and help you with that migration process. It also includes that cloud broker piece to give you the enhanced end user experience. So it really starts to focus on complete service delivery, even from a, if you look at some of the things that were available before, I mentioned compliance, for example. So compliance in Premium, you can do compliance for servers and operating systems and that type of thing. This takes it to the service level so that I could actually do compliance for an entire business service, and I could look at a particular business service and know whether or not that entire service is compliant, not just looking at the individual components. So this is really service transformation, service level management, and that's the concept behind the Ultimate Edition. Now we've got a number of use cases that we support. This is kind of a it's a bit of an eye chart, but it kind of shows all of the different basic functionality that we provide, right? So you see the master orchestration engine there in the middle. Really everything kind of feeds into that, right? Whatever we've monitored and analyzed can feed into that to take action and remediate things. Same for compliance automation, right? If we find something that's out of compliance, we can remediate that. The cloud native can feed into that as well, and use that orchestration for deployment, all of the infrastructure automation, database and middleware, all of the analytics, everything hinges on that orchestration engine. And all of this comes together to provide a number of key use cases, and we're going to cover a couple of those today. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Kieran to go through those use cases with you.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Kieran.
All right, thanks, Gary, and welcome everyone. And we are glad that you can join us. So I promise you there's going to be 3 more slides before I get to the first demo. So first and foremost, let's talk about the key capabilities that you would expect of a cloud management platform. That is to give you and your users a world-class experience in providing that self-service portal that is customizable. In addition to that, the key differentiation from us is the ability to provide that in a multi-currency format so that you can pick and choose the currency of your interest. Next, the ability for you to upgrade the services that are out there to the latest and greatest. And the other thing is the ability for your customers to kind of monitor their current usage, review them, modify them, and make changes as and when they use it. For all of these things to happen, you need to have a powerful graphic designer that provides you the capability to drag and drop and design these complex services. And as for any enterprise applications, these needs to be talking to multiple systems across different IT systems. It could be databases, middleware, it could be service management systems. So ability to talk to all these systems via out-of-the-box workflows is one of the key strengths. When you provide the service, the ability to talk to all of them and at the same time orchestrate all of these is one of our key strengths. Now, when you extend that capabilities across multiple clouds, irrespective of whether they're private or public clouds, this capability comes as a real benefit, because now you're not only talking about the systems that are residing in your data center, but also across various clouds and the technologies. For example, you have all these various orchestration platforms, such as Docker, GCP, Kubernetes, and managing the containers that are being deployed across those clusters and host systems is also a required capability. Next slide. And all of these, not only providing this capability, but also have the capability to delegate some of the responsibilities to the organization's administrators so that they can manage their workloads and at the same time manage who has access to those services and whether they're using it optimally is something that what we call as tenant management, and that is one of our key capabilities as well. So with that said, let me jump into first video. This is another slide where we talk about, you're all familiar with VM monitoring, where you kind of capture all the various metrics associated to VMs like CPU, storage, and what have you. But if you extend the same terminology to the containers, now we have the capability to monitor the containers that are deployed across the various orchestration platforms, and also be able to tap into the clusters and monitor those host systems and the applications that are deployed on these containers. We have what we call as a management pack, which can extend these capabilities across various public clouds. The first use case which I'm going to talk to you today about is a customer use case where we will be managing a fleet via a application called Fleet Management application. So in this example, I will roll a video and I will talk through those. So in this case, what we are seeing here is a fleet management application where each of the truck represent a GPS simulator, and that applications are sending the stream of data back to a main application, which will represent each of this fleet as a dot on the map. Now, extending this capability across the various orchestration platforms, here we're talking about Docker GCP, Marathon Mesos, or HPE Stackato. So the key strength here is for HCS to be able to a single point of administration where you can manage all these containers that are deployed across these various platforms. As you can see, the ability to abstract that capability and have the capability to deploy these containers across the various platforms is what we call as our key strength. As you can see here, you have an application that is deployed on HPE Stackato, and the containers can be deployed across the various platforms, and these can be managed across various types of clouds. As you can see, these containers can be scaled out or in. And to start off with, we have 2 containers that are currently hosted on HPE Stackato, as you can see in this map, and they're sending the real-time information about their current location. And currently, we have 2 instances running. Now, you have an administration portal for Stackato, which can enable you to kind of scale up and scale down these instances with the drag of that slider. And as you can see, these are all spun up with VMs that are being built using the Docker. With just a slide, as you can see, you're quickly ramping up those containers, and you are having about 14 containers right now. Now, using the Helion Cloud Suite administration, you will be able to manage multiple type of clouds. For example, here is Stackato, and we have other providers such as Microsoft Azure, Mesosphere, as well as Amazon AWS and the Docker UCP. Right? Now, how do you bring all these things in a single design is what we will show you now. So using the graphical designer, which I just talked about, that graphical user interface, we will be able to pick and choose a particular application design, and we bring in all these various cloud providers, what we just talked about, the Stackato, Docker, GCP, and also you need to have a common application components like the UI for showing that information. Now you can be able to quickly test this application design by selecting an environment and selecting the components that are part of the application service. And you can specify the instance count for each of the type of the various providers. For example, Docker Mesosphere, we are saying 100 containers. And you can pick and choose where you would want to deploy these containers. This could be on a public cloud like Amazon AWS, or it could be on the vCenter. In this example, we are showing you a already pre-built or pre-deployed application so that we can save some time and walk through the topology. Since this was a large deployment, this was pretty crowded. So when you zoom into those, you are seeing the application components on your left-hand side and the clusters and the various type of orchestration platform like your Docker UCP and the containers and the applications that are being deployed on these containers in this topology. Now, if you drill down, now you'll be able to see each component for all that particular deployment. And on the right-hand side, you have application properties. In this case, you can select the application URL. And as you can see, this particular represents the new deployments. And on the right-hand side, you see various deployments from different containers using different clouds and different technologies. Right? You can see Stackato 12 instances, Mesosphere 15, and Docker. Now, how about all these managed? Like HCS manages the various container orchestration platforms, and they in turn manage the containers that are being deployed in their environments. In this case, we are showing you Docker UCP control pane, where it is managing all the various containers that are currently being hosted. And you have here Mesos, which is showing its own representation of the containers and the marathon and the containers that it's currently managing. So the key strength here is HCS to manage all this from a single point so that your customers can benefit no matter what type of technology or what type of cloud they choose for the workloads they would want to deploy. Let's move on to the next key use case, that is ability to develop and deploy cloud-native application. So here are a few more slides. So because I want to double-click on our Helion Stackato capability. It's a cloud-native application platform that embraces both simpleness as well as openness. Openness in a sense like it is a platform that is being built on Cloud Foundry with Docker as an embedded feature, as well as relies on OpenStack. It's pretty comprehensive in terms of support to various frameworks such as Java, .NET, and the ability for them to be deployed across multiple clouds. Now, you can expand this deployment process to various stages of your pipeline in terms of development, testing, staging, and production. The easiness comes with the fact that you would be able to provision or request the services, for example, requesting a platform without worrying about the underlying system configurations or plumbing. Once you have the development system ready and built your application, now you can easily test this across various applications, test this across various test automation systems by easily provisioning and configuring them. Now you can replicate any number of these environments by by pointing to various stages in your development process. To give you a little background on the Cloud Foundry, that Helion Stackato is from Cloud Foundry, and it is based on the Cloud Foundry. And the difference here is you have the administrative console for you to easily manage applications that are being deployed, whereas Cloud Foundry comes with only command-only mode. And it also leverages Docker technologies and has support for multiple runtime systems. And you have also HPE support in providing you those services. And as you can see, this is based on Cloud Foundry. So I will quickly jump into the next use case, wherein here we're talking about deploying a cloud-native application. I'll roll the video. In this case, we're talking about a demo where it is an expense management system where you can track your expenses in terms of what type of date the expense has been made and the categories and what have you. In this case, it is powered by Helion Stackato and on Microsoft Azure. As you can see, this has an administrative console where you have a client and a mobile application. So the ability for your organizations to manage all these different applications as a microservice is one of the key strengths. In here, we're talking about managing this mobile application that is purely built on cloud-native way. And it does the same functionality like picking up a category and also specifying the amount and what have you, right? Now, the ability for you to scale up and scale down that instances is done through this administration portal, where you have the ability to go in and check the current memory usage, that is, and the current droplet usage here. Droplet here is, we're talking about containers. And when you use the slider to scale up the instance count, new instances are being created. In this case, Docker containers are created. So that way you have the automatic scaling capability that is built in and is expected for any of your cloud-native applications. Now you can also further expand this with attaching to a policy wherein you can set some thresholds so that you can automatically scale depending on the CPU usage. And as you can see, when you use that policy, it will automatically take that into consideration and start scaling depending on the bandwidth or the usage metrics. Now, how do you combine this with the latest and greatest development activities which your team has been working on? So you integrate with GitHub, wherein you have the ability to manage your source code repository and point it to a particular project and a particular branch. So in this case, we are talking about integrating with a available source code repository that we already have, and you pick the project and the runtime environment that is required for that for that project to work. Now you pick and choose the environment that you have just built, and you would then use it to make that latest code deployment. Now you can also expand on that capabilities by integrating with other tools. Now you have the capability to work on this particular application by looking into a couple of factors such as your environment details, your source code details, and you can trigger the new builds by making changes to an existing source code repository. In this case, you log into the source code repository, and you can start with a simple change to your HTML files. In this case, we are making a code change to a HTML file here, just by changing some of the text within the tags. In here, we are modifying the title of this application to submit expenses on a go. and once you make the code commit, that would trigger the build process associated to it, and this is through the webhooks that we already have in place. So once the code has been committed, you can see there's a build happening here, and followed by some testing that's required as part of your development dev test. And you would also be able to see the changes that's been propagated across your source code repository. And you would also be able to integrate with your automation test tools so that the changes are being properly tested before you roll. Now, if you refresh this particular screen, you would be able to see that these changes are now reflected in this new mobile application. So the key strength there is the ability for you to work on multiple technologies and make those technologies available to your developers rather than worrying about the configuration of those systems. And that's ability of your platform as a service capabilities that we offer you through Helion Stackato. So the key strength here is no matter what type of container orchestration platforms or where these containers are being deployed, whether these applications are traditional or cloud native, we have support for all of these technologies in various clouds. So this particular slide we talked about in the start of the presentation, the ability for us to deliver your DevOps across the various types of clouds by packaging all these capabilities. So the key third use case is for us to look how you can do analytics on the workloads that you just deployed. For that, you need to be able to first analyze what is being deployed in your environments, primarily through analyzing the topology in terms of whether this topology interacts with the various infrastructure elements and the applications that are being deployed on these infrastructure elements that are being used by these infrastructure elements, and learn from them in terms of, such, for example, looking into the patterns and adjusting the baseline so that if there is any anomaly, you would be able to catch them. Now, once you have the baselines adjusted, now you will be able to correlate that across various metrics that you have identified. So once you have the correlation in place, you would also be able to learn and be able to predict some of the changes that's happening in your services so that you can catch them before it impacts your customers. This is also done through a visualization so that you would be able to quickly see what's been happening in your data centers, as well as able to make those changes using the workflows that you might have already put in place in terms of remediation. So these are all key capabilities that you would need in order to operate at scale. And the only way for you to do that is to learn as you operate. So that's where machine learning comes into play in terms of analyzing the data which you already have, reading through the data that's coming through, and making the decisions based on that data. So for that, you need to have a clear insight into the data that's coming through. So that means you need to have an ability to connect to multiple data sources. So what we have here is the connectors that can talk to multiple data sources, and these connectors can run across the various infrastructure elements, so that you can track networks, storage elements, as well as servers, as well as applications that are deployed on those applications, so that you have a data point from different elements. You would be able to see them at any point in time and in a time lapse, or what we call as a playback mode, so that you can track the data coming through and the anomaly to that data, as well as changes that's happening to that data. So that way you will have an ability to pinpoint the root cause of that change, and you can map it back to an event or a log entry, so that you can know that this was happening because of a certain event. And bringing that whole information in the form of a dashboard. As you can see on the top left corner, you have a pictorial representation on the same type of information you will have in the associated log as well as the event that it's related to. So one of the key strengths is ability to search different type of data, and that is on the HPE's patented technology, where you would be able to both learn the language and also be able to able to analyze the data that's in through. The solution here is to provide this search across the various events and the topology and the log. So that way, your IT operational personnel will be able to assess that information as well as take some corrective action. Now, once you have that information, now you should be able to correlate that and provide some meaningful insights into that information, right? So that's where we were talking about, taking two different metrics and try to correlate that and see if there is any relation between these two, and so that cause and effect can be established. So that way, you can mark that particular event as one of the data elements which you would want to monitor in the future, and so that way, you can proactively take action before the problem reoccur. So in this this is another video where we'll be talking about a event that. So in this case, we're talking about a Advantage Banking is a fictitious application which was experiencing a problem. In this case, there is what we call as a slow response time, and you can see that in the heat map, and that is also affecting the financial metrics. In this case, the manager here is observing that there has been a slow response time, and that will affect the financial metrics associated to the bank. In this case, she wants to find out what exactly happened, so she's using what we call as a playback mode, where she goes back to goes back in time to find out what exactly happened for this cause, for this anomaly. She found that there are some data elements which happen at a certain point, and that relates to a change to a WebLogic configuration. And when she drills down to that particular data element, she's seeing that there are a couple of changes that's been made at a certain point in time, and she wants to look into the details on what those changes are. As you can see, she's looking at an anomaly where somebody made a change to WebLogic configuration, and you can go drill down to that particular event, and it will show you complete details on what the change is and who made that change. And as you can see, there has been some configuration change, and that's happened. And since that has happened, as you can see, there is only one change that has happened around that time, and you see that as one particular event on the right-hand side. Now, she wants to know further into what was the reason for the change, and if that can be avoided in the future. So, so what she does is, she wants to first track that event by marking that with the icon there, so that she can keep that as one of the knowledge items. And she wants to also figure out, what who has made that change. So the reason for that change, so that she wants to track this particular message group, so that in the future, if this happens, she will be able to know the root cause for that. So in this case, she's creating a matrix so that she can track that change in the future. For example, tracking the logs and adding that particular item to one of the benchmark metrics. Now, if she goes back to the dashboard, and she will want to further identify what was the cause for that problem in terms of managing those logs, and also trying to see what the root cause for that. And she wants to correlate that with other metrics. For example, she's also defining the various metrics for that in terms of what's whether this is going to be a highly relevant information so that she can attach a priority to it. And you can also drag and drop and kind of correlate two types of event. In this case, two types of benchmark performance indicators, so that if it's due to the response time and if it is affecting the financial metrics, then she can see that either because of a lot of load on that particular application, is it the application's response time slowing because of that, and how that both of them are correlated. So that way she can make some what you call as is informative decisions to see if this can be avoided in the future so that it wouldn't have an impact and take corrective action. So let's jump into the Q&A and see if we have any questions. The question manager.
Okay. Yeah, this is Jim Copio, and I'm going to moderate the Q&A. There's actually quite a few. So we'll try to hit them all if we can. And again, if we do not, they'll be posted on the Vivid webinar link for later. Okay, here we go. All right, we do have a question. Where can we find the information on the 8,000 plus OO flows? Carrie, can you pick that up?
Yes, absolutely. So as far as the various flows and operations that are available with operations orchestration, we do have documentation on that, and we can also provide, it comes with the product documentation, but we also have listing of the various flows and that gets updated with each release. So with each release, we add more and more flows and more resource actions, and the complete list and all of the different supported technologies is available with all of the product documentation on hpe.com.
Okay. FYI, your voice is very faint, Carrie. We heard you, I think, or at least.
Sorry, is that better?
Much better. Yep. Very cool.
To add more to what just Carrie said, so basically we will have what we call as a HPE Live Network, where we maintain various information on the various support for all these IT systems. And these are all what we call as the content packs. And these are available for our customers to download. And that's where you have these workflows that will enable you to connect to various IT systems. And these are all downloadable and will be able to use it as part of your service designs.
Perfect.
Yeah, for existing customers, you would go there to actually download the content packs and things. But if you haven't already purchased it, then you'll need to get it from the documentation.
Okay, let's move on. Here's another good question. Is it possible to build service designs for multiple clouds? Kieran, can you grab that one?
Can you repeat that? What was the question?
Is it possible to build service designs for multiple clouds?
Yes, that's one of the key strengths of HPE, where the designs are cloud agnostic. You design it once and run it anywhere. As in one of our demo we were showing, you have the ability to talk to multiple clouds and multiple technologies and pick the right cloud for your needs as you deploy them. So these designs are cut across the various clouds.
Perfect, thank you. We have a question from Keith. I think this one also is for you, Kieran. Where are we getting the topology from? Is this UD, Universal CMDB topology?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. When you build a service design, you are actually building the topology design as part of the system, but there is also a way to kind of correlate this information with the UD, as the gentleman said. So the idea here is to have a consistent design being built both from the UD as well as the Helion Cloud Suite.
Yeah, and UD UCMDB is included in Premium and above, or the Premium and
Yes,
Ultimate.
Premium and above, yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Another good question: which versions of the products are integrated? So I think Carrie, you want to grab that?
Yeah. So that is an excellent question and a common one that we get. So with this new suite, again, the first version of the suite came out at the end of July, and we will be releasing a new version of the suite each quarter. And so each quarter we will add the latest versions of the products. So all of the products that were available the day, when the suite was released on July 27th, we will use those latest versions, and then each quarter we will be upgrading that. And upgrading, we do the integration testing and all of that to make sure that all of the versions that were released that quarter come out in the new version. So, depending on when you purchase it or when you upgrade, right, you will always have the latest versions of the products that are within that suite the day the suite was released.
Makes sense. Perfect. I think this might have been covered, but it is a question, so let me articulate it. Compliance automation was mentioned as part of the Helion Cloud Suite. Can you tell me more about what that does and how it could help?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the products included in the suite is a product called IT Operations Compliance. It's a relatively new product from HPE. It was actually released, it's been about 2 years now, so for HP software that's kind of new. But it is the one that is providing the compliance functionality. And so, as I mentioned before, in the Premium Edition, you get that for the operating system level and hypervisors and basically your infrastructure. And then when you get into Ultimate, you get that at the service level. So at that point, it will look at compliance for databases and all of those types of things. And just like with the orchestration product, it has content packs depending on what type of compliance you want to do and what components you want to look at compliance for. So if I want to look at PCI compliance, for example, then I would go and download the PCI compliance content pack from HPE Live Network and import that into, you just download that into iTalk, and it will then give you all of that content to go out and give you the proper checks and remediation actions to make sure that your environment meets that particular compliance. So we support compliance for, gosh, I'm trying to think of what all we support. I know PCI,
DSS.
DSS, thank you. Yeah, and we have the SOX. That was the other big one. And then we've also got just some general standards. So, for example, Docker containers. We have content for Docker containers. There is no PCI restriction, if you will, or compliance standard for Docker containers, but we have the content of what Docker recommends, right? Here's how you make sure that you're secure and compliant for Docker containers, and then you can apply that to various policies, right? So if you want to add that to whether it's, you want to create your corporate standards based on those types of things, or whether you want to apply additional standards on top of the basic standards that have been provided by the various organizations, right? Whether it's PCI or SOX or whoever.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Excuse me, Kieran, I think this one might be a good one for you. Here's the question. You quickly showed a screenshot of container discovery before the second demo. Can you give us more information on what that does and how it works?
Sure. So as and when your containers are being deployed on the various clusters and the hosts and the various clouds which the customers might have choose. So what happens there is what we call as a runtime service model. So as and when a service has been deployed, and depending on the infrastructure it's using and the containers it's using, we will build a runtime model. So as and when the runtime model has been built, you provide management packs, what we call as a monitoring management packs, which will enable as and when the service is been provisioned, you provide hooks into those containers, be it at the cluster level or at the host level. And what happens then is ability for those clusters to stream that information on where the containers are being managed and what type of applications have been deployed on those containers. Back to the operations, or what we call as operations management portal, which will then enable the IT administrators to look into the deployment and also be able to track their usage and the various metrics associated to their usage.
Okay, thanks, Kiran. I have one for Kerry. Let me just find it here. It's from Keith again. Is there an upgrade path to Helion Cloud Suite defined for existing SAOO customers?
So we are working on, for lack of a better word, upgrade SKUs, right? So that customers who currently have components within the suite, particularly SAOO and CSA, CSA being the Cloud Service Automation, because those are key components within the suite. We are working on ways to help our customers do an upgrade to, from those individual products, or maybe they have 2 or 3 of those products, to be able to upgrade to the entire suite. Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Kiran, here's one for you. Can the CSA service design be modular? ? Like in OO, we have flows calling other subflows. Like inside a service design, you can call other designs.
No. I think we need to get back to you on that after checking with the team. Okay,
so we'll do some research and you'll see the answer posted in a few days on the webinar site for Vivid. Cool. Alexander has a question. I think I understand it. It says, replace HCS CSA ? Kerry, does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and that kind of goes along with the upgrade piece, right? So CSA, as I mentioned, is a part of the Helion Cloud Suite. You would not replace CSA with that, but you would upgrade and essentially just add the other components within the suite.
Okay, that makes sense. Just trying to see what other new questions have come in. We're almost finished with questions. Where we can find.
There's something about OPSA and OpsBridge and metrics.
Okay, I'm looking for that now. Just bear with me. Yeah, I could be missing that, Kerry.
Let's see. Oh, here it is. So for OPSA, to what extent are we relying on OMI and OpsBridge for events and metrics and topology versus other vendor tools? Can OPSA function without any of the other HPE tools? So we do rely heavily on OpsBridge. OpsBridge is included in the suite, so I wouldn't suggest you function without OpsBridge. Just given that it's there, you might as well use it. But we also can take feeds from other vendor tools as well, right? So we can take feeds from
Splunk.
Splunk. I was like, starts with an S. Yeah, so we can take feeds from Splunk and other tools, but also from OpsBridge. So the more feeds you provide, right, the better the analytics.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's what you just covered. I think that may wrap up our questions. So we actually have 5 minutes to go, and we're going to get done a few minutes early, which is always good. I think we have one more slide. If you can progress that, Kiran, please.
Sure.
It's basically a wrap-up slide. I'm required to say these things, but no, seriously. You'll get an email in your inbox asking if you'd be kind enough to fill out a quick survey. It literally takes 60 seconds, so if you could kindly do that, that'd be awesome. And again, this is recorded, so you can pick this up in a couple, 3 days, the slides as well as the recording as well as the Q&A. And we'll add the 1 or 2 ones we had to research that we could not answer. So with that, I appreciate the presenters. Kiran, Kerry, thank you so much. Awesome. We had a good crowd, by the way, and look forward to announcements on part 3. I assume sometime in September, maybe, and that'll take this another level and keep educating all the customers and partners on Helion Cloud. So thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Everyone, thanks for your time. Bye now.